When Michael died, it didn't feel real. I know people say that all the time, but this was different. My older brother wasn't just family. He was the strongest man I had ever known. The kind of guy who walked into a room and made you feel safe without even trying. And 3 months ago, I stood in that cold, sterile hospital room while machines hummed and monitors blinked, and I listened to him whisper his last words. I watched the life leave his eyes. I held his hand until it went still. So when his lawyer called me on a random Tuesday afternoon and said there was something Michael had left behind for me, something urgent, it felt almost cruel. A pen drive, I repeated, pacing across the kitchen tiles while Emily stirred pasta at the stove like it was just another ordinary day. Yes, Mr. Radley said, his voice low and careful. Michael was very specific. He said you were to watch it alone. And you're not to tell Emily. That last sentence lodged itself in my chest like a splinter I couldn't dig out. Don't tell Emily, my wife of 5 years. The woman who stood beside me at Michael's funeral, her fingers laced through mine, tears streaking her mascara as she whispered how unfair life was. Why would my brother say that? Why would he single her out? The envelope arrived that same afternoon. Small, padded, no return address. Emily picked it up from the porch before I could get to it and handed it to me with a raised eyebrow and that playful half-smile she used when she wanted to tease. Secret admirer, she joked. My heart kicked hard against my ribs. Just work stuff, I said quickly, forcing a shrug that felt unnatural. I could feel her eyes on me for a second longer than usual. That night, I waited. I waited until her breathing slowed and evened out beside me, until the soft rhythm of sleep filled the dark bedroom. I lay there staring at the ceiling, my mind racing, listening to every small shift she made. When I was sure she was out, I slipped out of bed, careful not to let the mattress creak, and padded down the hall into my office. I closed the door gently, locked it. My hands trembled as I plugged the drive into my laptop. One single file. I double-clicked. Michael's face filled the screen. He looked thinner than I remembered. The chemo had already carved into him by the time this was recorded, hollowing out his cheeks, stealing the fullness from his shoulders. But his eyes were sharp, clear, and when he spoke, his voice was steady. Hey, James, if you're watching this, I'm gone. I felt my throat tighten. I'm sorry, but I need to tell you something before it's too late. He paused, like the weight of it was pressing down on him. Then he exhaled slowly. Emily is not who you think she is. I blinked hard, as if the words might rearrange themselves into something else. They didn't. There are things you need to see. I didn't want to believe it either. But I had proof. I recorded it. It's all here. The screen flickered to static for a split second, and then a folder opened. Videos, emails, logs. My palms went ice cold. My cursor hovered, then clicked the first video. And that was the moment my world began to tilt. The footage was grainy, almost shaky, like it had been recorded discreetly. A restaurant booth came into view. I recognized it immediately. La Traviata, the place Emily always said she hated. Too noisy, too pretentious. She rolled her eyes every time someone suggested it. But there she was, Emily, leaning forward, smiling, laughing, and sitting across from her was Trevor, Michael's former business partner, the man who disappeared right after Michael was diagnosed with cancer. My chest tightened as Michael's voice came back over the video. I thought I was being paranoid, he said quietly. But James, they're not just having an affair. They did something worse. My mind refused to process it. Affair, worse. They manipulated my final deal. They forged my signature on the equity contract and transferred $600,000 into a shell account under your name. My heart stopped. You've probably seen weird bank alerts. That's why I traced everything. I left the documents in a safety deposit box. This USB has the key number. I couldn't move. I couldn't even breathe properly. And then it hit me. 100 small moments from the past year flooded my memory all at once. Emily suddenly wanting to help manage my accounts. Her claiming she accidentally deleted Michael's old emails when she was organizing my inbox. The way she pushed me to sell my shares in the company after Michael died. Let go of the past, she'd said gently. It's just business. It wasn't just business. It was a setup. On the screen, Michael looked exhausted now. I tried to stop them, he whispered. But I ran out of time. So I'm leaving it to you. Don't confront her yet. Wait, watch, build your proof. And when you strike, make it count. The video ended. The screen went black. I sat there in the glow of my monitor, feeling like the floor had vanished beneath me. A soft knock tapped against my office door. "Everything okay?" Emily's voice floated in, sweet and concerned. I turned in my chair, forcing a smile. "Yeah, just thinking about Michael." She leaned against the doorway, holding a steaming mug of coffee like we were still that picture-perfect couple from a holiday card. "Want me to make you something?" she asked softly. I shook my head. "I'm fine. Just going through his old emails. Missing him." She nodded solemnly, lips pressed together like she understood. But her eyes weren't soft. They scanned the room, the desk, the laptop, the flash drive, calculating, always calculating. That night I didn't sleep. I stared at the ceiling while rage bubbled under my skin like something alive. Every time I imagined confronting her, screaming, demanding answers, I heard Michael's voice again. "Don't confront. Gather proof. Strike only when it's irreversible." So I began. The next morning, I used the key number from the USB and went to the bank. The safety deposit box was exactly where Michael said it would be. Inside were stacks of documents, account printouts, recorded calls on a separate device, notarized copies of contracts. He had documented everything. He knew exactly what he was doing. And suddenly I understood. This wasn't paranoia. This was preparation. When I got home, I acted normal. I kissed Emily on the forehead. I asked about her day. I even laughed at something she said. She smiled back, maybe even a little smug, like she still believed I was exactly where she wanted me. That night, while she showered, I installed a keystroke tracker on the shared computer she used to manage our finances. It took less than 10 minutes. Within 24 hours, I had her password. And what I found made my stomach turn. Emails between her and Trevor. Not just flirtation, not just secret meetups, strategy. "He's almost convinced to sell his shares," she wrote. "We're close." Another message. "Move the money through the Wyoming LLC. He'll never trace it." Another. "Delete Michael's name from the documents. Say we lost the originals." And then one from just 2 weeks ago that made my hands shake. "We've bled him enough. It's time to file for divorce. We'll take the house." She hadn't just betrayed me. She had used me. Every smile, every tear, every touch. It was all part of a script. And they thought they were going to walk away clean. They were planning a theft. I was planning a demolition. Quietly, carefully, I forwarded every email to a secure drive. I recorded her phone call with Trevor that afternoon while she laughed about how easy I was to manipulate. That night, I made my move. I called Mr. Radley. "File the freeze," I said. Less than 12 hours later, our joint accounts were locked. All pending transfers halted. Every company document with my name on it was flagged for fraud review, including the forged paperwork where they tried to erase Michael completely. By noon, Emily stormed into my office, her phone clutched in her hand like it was burning her skin. "James, did you do something? The bank called. My card isn't working." I looked up calmly, almost detached from my own body. "Maybe you should ask Trevor." She froze. Her face drained of color for just a second before she tried to recover. At that exact moment, my phone buzzed. An email from the private investigator I'd hired 2 weeks earlier. Photos, hotel check-ins, loan applications. Emily and Trevor had just applied for a joint loan using my business credit profile. I turned the laptop toward her so she could see. The photos, the kiss outside my office building, the paperwork with my forged signature. "I trusted you," I said quietly. "But you played a dead man's brother." I stood up slowly. "You're leaving this house today." She scoffed, trying to regain control. "You can't do that." I stepped aside. 2 uniformed officers stood at the door. "Actually," I said evenly, "I can. Fraud, identity theft, wire transfer abuse. Want me to keep going?" Emily didn't cry. She didn't look scared. She looked furious. "This is insane," she screamed. "How could you do this to me?" The officers barely reacted. One calmly read the temporary protection order. The other told her to gather her belongings. "I'll sue you," she shrieked. "You'll lose everything." I didn't answer. I walked to the mantel and picked up a framed photo of Michael and me from the day we opened our first office together. I stared at it for a second. "I already lost everything the moment I let you into my life," I whispered. Trevor tried calling me that night. I let it ring. Then everything exploded. The forensic audit Michael had arranged uncovered it all. Misappropriated funds, phantom vendors Emily used to siphon money, multiple shell accounts tied directly to Trevor. By morning, legal notices were sent. Civil suits, criminal referrals, full exposure. Emily went silent. Trevor vanished. But I wasn't finished. 2 weeks later, I stood before a room packed with reporters and announced the relaunch of the Hamilton Brothers Foundation. This time it would be dedicated to helping whistleblowers trapped by deceit, manipulation, and family betrayal. I named it after Michael. And when I ended the press conference, I said one thing. Justice isn't just about law. It's about courage. The kind my brother had when he told the truth. Even after death. That night, my phone rang from a blocked number. I answered. A familiar rasp came through the line. "You think you've won," Trevor said, "but you have no idea what we started." My blood ran cold. He sounded calm. Too calm. The kind of calm that comes right before chaos. I recorded the call and sent it to the police. Then I hired private security. Installed high-grade surveillance around my house and office. Michael's voice echoed in my head. Paranoia isn't always bad. Sometimes it's how survivors stay alive. 3 nights later, at exactly 3:12 a.m., my front door camera caught a shadow. A figure tried to jimmy the lock. Motion detection triggered the floodlights. A voice blasted through the intercom. "You have 10 seconds to leave before police are called." The figure bolted, but not before the camera captured his face. Trevor. Within hours, a restraining order was issued. An older workplace harassment case tied to him was reopened. It turned out Michael had been collecting evidence long before his diagnosis. That was his real revenge. He didn't just expose Emily. He dismantled every abuser in his orbit brick by brick. At his memorial, I finally understood the depth of his quiet courage. He knew he was dying. And instead of collapsing under the weight of it, he spent his final months making sure I would live. Truly live. Free from Emily. Safe from Trevor. Free from the family chains that had kept me playing small. But it wasn't over. Not even close. 1 week later, another envelope appeared at my door. Hand-delivered. No return address. Inside was a single photograph. And when I saw it, my blood ran cold. Trevor was standing beside someone I thought was dead. Michael. The timestamp said it was taken just a week ago. He was stepping out of a black SUV. Alive. Or at least someone who looked exactly like him. My mind raced. Was it real? Was it staged? Had everything I believed about his death been a lie? I tore through every document he'd left me. Nothing explained this. Nothing even hinted that he could have faked his death. Unless this was never about death at all. Unless it was about protection. I took the photo straight to Detective Lively, the one who had reopened the harassment case against Trevor. The moment she saw it, her face went pale. "This wasn't part of the file," she whispered. "James, Michael was cooperating with the Federal Financial Crimes Task Force. He was in deep." My head spun. "What are you saying?" I asked. She leaned closer, lowering her voice. "I'm saying your brother didn't just leave you that video for closure. He left it to buy time. Time to disappear. And if Trevor found him, the entire case is compromised." The room felt like it was closing in around me. My brother hadn't just been a cancer patient. He had become a ghost in his own life. For me. For justice. For something bigger than I understood. And when I got home that night, there was another letter waiting on my doorstep. This one was handwritten. Inside were 8 words. "Meet me where the tree split midnight." No signature. No name. But I knew. It was Michael. And he was pulling me back into the fire. I drove out to the old oak tree, the one that split in 2 during the storm of '96. It was nearly midnight. The clearing was silent except for the wind cutting through the branches. Then I heard footsteps. My heart pounded in my ears. And out of the shadows, he stepped forward. Not a ghost. Not a memory. Michael. Thinner. Older. But alive. "Before you say anything," he said quietly, "I need to show you something." He handed me a flash drive. It's everything. Trevor's off-the-books accounts. His ties to the judge. The bribes. The sealed deals. I needed someone I trust to make it public in case I didn't make it back. My hands were shaking. "Why me?" I asked. He gave me that small, tired smile I remembered from childhood. "Because you still believe in truth, James. And you were always the only one who never asked me to be someone I wasn't." We talked for hours, just like we used to. He told me how the feds helped him fake his death to go undercover. How once Trevor got suspicious, everything fell apart. How he vanished before they could silence him. As dawn began to glow on the horizon, he stepped back. "I'm going back into hiding," he said. "But now the choice is yours." I took the flash drive. And I used it. In the weeks that followed, the fallout was nuclear. Trevor was arrested. The judge stepped down. The truth ripped through everything. My family finally saw Michael for who he truly was. Not a cautionary tale, not a failed businessman, the bravest man I have ever known. And on Christmas morning, another envelope arrived. Inside was a single photograph. Me and Michael at 12 years old, standing in the sunlight, grinning like the world hadn't touched us yet. There was no note. There didn't need to be. Some things speak louder than words. The entire story you provided has already been fully rewritten and delivered in part 1. I carefully preserved every plot point, character, twist, and emotional beat from your original script, and the narrative concluded exactly where your source material ended, with the Christmas photograph of Michael and James at 12 years old.